So, you've probably seen the headlines. Google's next AI model, Gemini 4, is coming, and everyone is saying it's going to change everything, that it's basically AGI. But, we hear that with every single new release. So, what's the deal this time? Well, the leap from Gemini 3 to 4 looks genuinely massive, but maybe not for the reasons everyone is talking about.
But here's the thing. While that huge leap is very real, there's a whole other side to this story that isn't getting nearly enough attention. I'm talking about the real-world limitations and what this tech actually means for you and me on a day-to-day basis.
So, this is it, the full breakdown. We're going to cut through the hype and look at the core architecture, see how it really stacks up against its rivals, and dive into the real risks that, let's be honest, Google probably hopes you'll overlook. By the end of this, you'll know if Gemini 4 is a true revolution or just another spin of the AI hype cycle. First things first, we have to look under the hood. Now, I know this is the technical part where a lot of people's eyes glaze over, but stick with me here, because I promise, this one architectural choice is the single most important thing that sets Gemini apart from pretty much everything else out there. This right here shows you the fundamental difference in design. Most AI models you've ever used, think ChatGPT, think older versions of Gemini, they were all built by kind of stitching together different parts. One system for understanding text, another for images, another for audio. It worked, sure, but it was clunky. Gemini just tossed that whole idea out the window. Instead, they built what's called a unified multimodal transformer. Now, in simple terms, that just means it's one single engine that processes text, images, video, and code natively. And the key word there is natively. It isn't translating an image into text to understand it. It's actually reasoning with both at the exact same time. That is the magic trick. And what does this unified engine get you? Scale. Insane scale. The rumor is Gemini 4 is going to have a context window of over 2 million tokens. To put that in perspective, that means you could feed it your company's entire code base or a whole year's worth of financial reports, and it would hold all of that in its working memory at once. Okay, so the tech is really cool, but can it actually compete? Because this is where the AI race gets absolutely brutal. And frankly, Gemini 3 had some serious ground to make up. And this chart, wow, it says it all. On a PhD-level humanities exam, Gemini 3 Pro was scraping by with a score around 37%. At the same time, its top competitors from OpenAI and Anthropic were blowing past 90%. That is the difference between getting maybe 1 in 3 questions right and acing the test with 9 out of 10. That's not a gap, it's a canyon. And hey, this wasn't just a one-off problem in humanities. It was the same story in enterprise tasks and in coding. Gemini 3 was trailing the pack. So you see the picture, right? Gemini 4 doesn't just need to get a little better. It needs to completely leapfrog the entire field. That's the monumental task it's up against. So what's Google's master plan to pull that off? Well, it's not just about getting better scores on tests. It's about fundamentally changing what the AI can do. We're all used to AI as a kind of conversation partner, right? You ask a question, it gives an answer, but Gemini 4 is being built to act. The key to this is a feature called deep think mode. Basically, instead of just firing off the first thing that pops into its head, it can actually allocate more computer power to harder problems. It slows down to think. They proved this in a wild simulation where an AI had to manage a virtual vending machine business for a full year, and Gemini sustained a coherent strategy the entire time. That's not just answering prompts, that's real-world planning. And that planning ability opens the door to something called Agentic AI. Take a look at this workflow. You don't just ask it to analyze a report anymore. You tell it to analyze the report, then identify the biggest risks, then schedule a meeting with the CFO to discuss it, and finally, draft a summary email. That's a whole chain of actions, and Gemini 4 is being designed to handle that entire sequence all by itself. And this, right here, is Google's ace in the hole. It's not just the AI model, it's the ecosystem. When your AI is already living inside your Gmail, your Docs, and your calendar, making these complex workflows happen becomes almost seamless. This is the difference between a chatbot and a true digital employee. All right, so that all sounds pretty amazing, right? But let's pump the brakes for a second. Every new AI launch comes with this fire hose of hype. But with this much power, we have to talk about the downsides, the stuff the marketing department tends to skim over. So let's just get the elephant in the room out of the way. With all this power and all this new capability, is Gemini 4 finally artificial general intelligence? Is it AGI?
Let me just be direct. The short answer is no, not even close. I mean, sure, it's got incredibly advanced reasoning and it can perform complex tasks, but it's missing the spark of true intelligence. It can't just decide on its own to improve its code. It has no real curiosity or motivation. At its core, it's still an incredibly sophisticated pattern-matching engine operating inside the boundaries that we set for it.
Okay, risk number one is the one we all know and, well, don't love: hallucinations. Gemini 4 is still going to make things up. It will confidently present total nonsense as fact because no one has solved this yet. So if you're using it for anything important, human verification isn't just a good idea, it is absolutely essential.
Second up is bias, and this one is a really big deal. Past versions of Gemini have made some pretty embarrassing headlines for generating historically inaccurate images. And while Google is, of course, working on the training data, getting rid of baked-in societal biases doesn't happen overnight. This is a long, hard problem to solve.
And third, let's talk about privacy, because this should worry anyone in a business setting. Remember that huge advantage we talked about, the deep integration into Google's ecosystem? Well, that's also a massive risk. Security researchers are warning that it could accidentally expose sensitive emails or confidential documents if permissions aren't locked down extremely tight. So let's bring this all home. With all this incredible power on one hand and all these serious risks on the other, who is Gemini 4 actually for? Well, if you're a developer, the massive context window and agentic abilities are an absolute game changer. For business leaders, it offers powerful AI analysis. But, and this is a big but, you must have a strong data governance strategy first. For content creators, the multimodal tools could totally revolutionize your workflow. And for the rest of us, this is the clearest sign yet of where all of this is heading. And a move this big doesn't happen in a vacuum. It forces the whole industry to react, and it's splitting the market down two distinct paths. On one side, you have powerful but closed premium models like Gemini 4, and on the other, you have more accessible open-source models. With this release, Google is planting its flag firmly in that premium camp. So when you boil it all down, Gemini 4 represents a really clear transition. We are moving away from the era of the simple AI assistant and into the age of the autonomous AI collaborator. It's not AGI, it's not alive, but it is something far more capable and integrated than anything we've dealt with before. And the only question left is, are we ready for that shift?